Hi, it's Bobby with Hitchdock Outdoors, and today we're going to be assembling the Eagle Talon Universal Blade that comes in the Universal Plow kit. This blade is available in an ATV size that can be assembled in a 50-inch or 60-inch wide version, and also a UTV size that it can be assembled in a 66 or 72-inch version. Today we will be assembling the 60-inch version of an ATV. The assembly process for both blade sizes and all the hardware is the same no matter which one you are doing. All of the hardware for this blade comes in a kit. There's the part number on it and it says the Blade Hardware Kit. Inside of it is 3 additional bags of hardware. One that will do the wear bar, one that will do the top brace, and then one that does several of the center braces and bolts the blade together. So let's begin. I've already separated the hardware out into the 5 steps that we will use for assembly. These 2 right here, this is for the top brace and the bottom wear bar. They came out of the same bag. These 3 containers came out of the center brace hardware, but I just broke them out into the steps displayed in the instructions. The center panel on both blade sizes is the exact same piece. It's 27 inches wide. When you do the ATV version, it's easier to tell which are the side panels and which is the center because you have 2 that are slightly smaller and the same size. When it comes to the UTV version, all of the panels are the same size. So you'll want to look for this top bent on the flange. To begin, I suggest that we have 4 boards, 4x4s, 2x4s, whatever you have laying around that works, and then also a tape measure. I'm going to take the tape measure and lock it open in my desired blade size. Since I'm going to do the 60-inch today, I will lock it open at 60 inches just to help me know where to put my boards. I want 2 of the center ones approximately 20 to 25 inches apart, kind of centered. So in this case, I'm about 17.5 and 39.5. And then my outer boards just inside the beginning of the tape measure and just inside the end of the tape measure. That will help make sure that you are going to assemble the blade in the correct size. So now to begin, we'll take our center blade section. On the ATV version, it's easier to tell which one it is because you have 2 that are going to be the same size that are slightly smaller and then 1 larger one. On the UTV one, all 3 panels are the same size. So you will want to look for this top flange on the top and then note that all of the holes in the center of the blade are square. That means it's the center section of the blade, so we will put that face down on our center 2 boards with this top flange facing away from me. Now I have my side panels, and if we look at these, here's my top flange bent over. Now I have square holes on the outside of the blade, but on this side of the blade, I have round slots. That means this is going to be the center section of the blade, so I know that this is the right panel. So I'm going to come over here and place it on top of my center section, face down, and then make sure it is on the outer board. Since this blade can be assembled in a 60-inch or a 50-inch version, if I lined up these center holes here, that is how I would be at 50 inches. And now I will know I'd be disappointed if I wanted the 60 and got done that it was too short. So by having this board and the tape measure here, I know that that's not the whole section I want, and I'm going to shift out to the outer ones, and it's resting on the outside. We'll do the same piece with this panel. Here's the flange at the top, square holes on one side, round slots on the other. This is my left panel. It will go right here, over top. Make sure I'm lining up, landing on both my center section and my outer board. All right, now we will put on our center support braces. There are 2 of these. Notice that these top and bottom flanges are bent the same direction. We want them facing each other. We do not want them like this. So you want to make sure that they're facing each other. So this is the left, this is the right. This center flange, we are going to line up with this center slot on the back of the blade here. I'm just gonna set it there, and then I'm gonna use my first set of hardware, which is out of the center brace support kit hardware. And it's a 5/16 by 1 inch carriage bolt. I can reach under, find that center hole, push the blade up, and then I am just going to loosely start the provided nylock nut that was in the hardware kit on it. We are going to leave all hardware loose until the whole blade is assembled. Now I can do the outer flanges using the same hardware. And then we will repeat for the other side. I'm going to move the tape measure just so it's out of the way. Now we will be installing the lower blade supports using the 5/16 by 3/4 carriage bolts that were in the same hardware kit. There will be 4 of those, 2 on each one. Those are going to go in these bottom sections here and attach the rear support braces. This cutout right here is where the skid shoe will go. And so this is going to be the right side. And if I look at the left side, the skid shoe bracket is on the other side. So we'll go on this side. We'll begin by taking one of the 3/4 inch bolts and placing it in the square cutouts on the bottom of the center support brace that we just did. 1 in each one. Then we will place in the set of holes this works on, or that lines up with the end of the blade. You'll want this to line up at the end, and now this is the set of holes I will use. I would use this set if I was installing this as a 50 inch. Then take the center support brace and line up the holes as well that line up with it. Again, there's other options for the 50 inch, for the 66, for the 72. This brace is the same in all kits. And then start the nut on the bottom. And now we will install the one on the opposite side by just sliding this in between here and then putting the bolt in. And just loosely start those. All right. Next, we will be installing our wear bar. So that is a wear bar hardware kit that you will open, and it is 5/16 by 1 inch carriage bolts along with 5/16 nylock nuts. You may have extras left over if you're installing the ATV version, as it's the same kit for the 66 and 72. They use, I think, 2 more bolts, so will probably have a couple left. The wear bar comes in 3 pieces, is what you will have. There are going to be 2 that are the same size, and 1 that is smaller in both kits. The smaller one will be the center. If I am going to assemble this as a 50 inch in this case, or the 66 on the smaller size, I will not use the center. I will just use the 2 longer ones, and they will line up to each other, and that'll just achieve the smaller blade size. If I'm going to assemble it as the larger one, then I will be using the other panel. On the ATV version, this is symmetrical. so it doesn't matter which one I put on which side. When it comes to the UTV version, there is a section that has fairly equally spaced holes, and then a section that has a large variety. This will be towards the inside of the blade. So you want more of the material at the bottom for the cutting edge, so then this would actually be my left wear bar, because I want my excess holes towards the center to allow for my smaller size configurations. I will begin by sliding my boards up just slightly on the one side I'm going to start working on. The blade will bend down a little, but it's okay. It just makes it easier to attach the wear bar. So I'm going to take on the 60-inch, I'm going to take one of these, I'm going to put the carriage bolt through the hole, through here, and start a nut on it. I will then come to the opposite end, put one through all the braces, and start it. Repeat for the opposite end. Now for the center brace, since we are installing the 60, we will put that just right here in the gap that was left. Now before we install the rest of the wear bar bolts, we are going to be installing the skid shoes. These are what they look like, just bent pieces with a long slot that allows for a lot of adjustment. It's using the same hardware, but we are going to put those in the skid slots, install in those cutouts in the back of the rear brace that I mentioned earlier. So slide it up through there, put the bolt through from the front, and start the nut on it. Now if you want this, I'm going to leave them loose for now, we'll tighten them later. If you wanted it, you could install it so it's basically flush with the bottom of the blade, or if you want, to leave space, if you're on gravel, you can install it higher. And now finish installing the rest of the wear bar bolts in the remaining holes. Now that the wear bar is installed, you would have received two pieces that look like this or similar. They're the rear space support for the wear bar. If you made this as a 50-inch or a 66-inch size, you will only use a 1. If you made it as the larger 60-inch or 72-inch size, you will use both. Now the slots in here are going to go over the wear bar bolts on the center of the blade section. This is to fill the space between this and the other wing, just to help so that the wear bar and the blade does not deform when we tighten it up later. So they just drop right over top. Just like that. Now we're going to install the top handle and top part of the top brace. Here's the handle to help move it around. Then there's 4 flanges. There's also these square holes in the top, and those are going to line up with the holes in the top of the brace that was bent over. We will use the remaining hardware that is from the center brace support hardware kit. The 5/16 by 3/4 inch carriage bolts. It's 6 of them that attaches this. I'll start by attaching the top one just to help keep the brace in place. And then it takes 4 from the underside of the blade, the carriage bolt, and we'll go through the corresponding holes in the brace. Now we flip the blade around to be able to access the top, because what we have left to do is install the top blade extension brace. This is also 3 pieces. There's going to be on the 50/60 ATV version, there will be a shorter one and 2 longer ones that are the same size. On the UTV version, you will have 2 shorter ones that are the same size and 1 longer one. The ones that you have 2 of that are the same size are your outer pieces, and the one that you have 1 of will be your center piece. So you will begin by installing the outer sections first, using all of the 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch carriage bolts that were in the top brace hardware kit that was in the bag. So I'm going to begin by taking 1 bolt and 1 nut and one of the outer edges. Again, that's the one that we have 2 of. These are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which one goes on which side. We'll do the carriage bolt from the inside and start the nut on it. Now I suggest skipping 1 hole and just doing the next one just to help hold it in line. And then repeat for the other side using the other pair. Now when it comes to the center pieces, on the 60-inch version, it fits perfectly sandwiched right in between. On the UTV version, this piece will go over top of the other pieces, and there's a set of holes that lines up to help bolt it down. Now there is a gap between the brace and the center section, again, because of the wings. So we have provided some flat washers that can go in there. Okay. So we have provided some flat washers that can go in between there to fill the space. So on this one, I'll grab a carriage bolt and another nut. I'll put this in, I'll put that washer in, then I'll put the brace on and start this. Now, it can be a little difficult laying down. You just have to drop it partially in till it gets through in order to catch the hole in the flat washer. On the wider versions, you will have room for 4 of those washers, so I will add the other ones in to our outer extensions. Now finish installing the rest of the carriage bolts in the remaining holes where they do line up. Again, on the UTV version, you may have some where there's not a corresponding hole in the blade, and so skip those ones. All right, now it's time to fully tighten up all of the hardware. All you need for this is a 1/2-inch socket, a 7/16 socket, and if you are going to run the skid shoes more flush to the ground, then you will need a 1/2-inch wrench or gear wrench. Otherwise, if you're gonna leave it where you're gonna leave about a 1/2 to 1 inch off the ground, if you're gonna do gravel or something, you can tighten it with the impact. I suggest starting with the center braces first and then just working out from there. Now that the blade is fully tightened, we're going to attach it to the universal push tube. We're going to use the provided 1/2 by 1.5 inch bolts with a flat washer, and you'll put it through the hole in the blade support and the corresponding hole in the push tube. Place another flat washer on it and then start the nylock nut. Repeat for the other side. Now we'll use a 3/4 inch wrench and socket to tighten these up. You want to tighten this enough that the blade is still able to pivot forward. Now we'll install our trip springs. You'll put one end of the spring through the flange on the swivel, the other end through the push tube. Now you'll be able to slightly pivot the blade back. Put a flat washer on it and start the nylock nut. And repeat for the other side. Before we tighten the springs, we're going to fully tighten the blade stops. These can be changed in multiple angles, but we recommend just starting with them down as a good starting point. The eye bolt on the spring until there's about a 1/2 inch of thread sticking out. And now we're ready to hook up to our machine of choice using the universal plow mount. There are additional accessories available, including left and right side shields that attach to the blade using existing holes in the blade, or we also have plow markers to mark the edge of your blade. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us at info@hitchstockoutdoors.com.